Well, it wouldn't be the Animus relative to the past 6 years if it wasn't for faggots still trying to be faggots in my universe. I guess that's what terrorism is. And I guess this is a good time to bring it up. Let's bring it up. Terrorism in the video game world that I live, exist, and create and exist in, is this faggot shit. So what you did was you created a narrative form of terrorism that plays out in a narrative way relative to the storyline. And then when you did is you found a new form of terrorism that explains terrorism by being terrorists relative to explaining terrorism relative to a narrative storyline of terrorism. So faggots, basically, if I'm correct, is going to become a term that simply describes video game terrorism. That's what I think faggot stands for most accurately right now. Right now, I think the game about faggots is a game where you're exposing terrorism being played out within games that involves terrorism. So like, for example, Call of Duty, The Division, Ghost Recon, you have terrorist elements, you have terrorist narrative, you have terrorist characters. Now, Activision played with this theme for many years. I think it was Activision or other studios, but the Call of Duty series dealing with terrorists and Nazis, having to understand the character, having to understand the story, having to understand their side. Now we're dealing with that same concept, but in the actual video game world, using the storytelling of video games and narratives revolving around terrorism, but using that as the actual terrorism to confuse people of what real terrorism is. Right, like they're trying to numb your idea and definition of terrorism because in their mind they can brainwash you to believe whatever they want. So they're going to brainwash you however they think they can, and they're going to try to rewrite your brain to protect something that they thought was right, starting to look like it's very wrong. And the people who thought that I was trying to protect something that looked very wrong is actually starting to look very right. So for all this faggoty asshole bullshit that we've been through, that Amazon, and I'm so certain of Jeff Bezos' spickety ass wife side of the family of Amazon screwing people over with Amazon and Twitch and doing bad, I'm so certain that her side, I'm so certain of it. It's her side of the family that did this. So this is how terrorism is being represented in the video game digital gaming context. It's like with term faggots and because they want it, because they've been making an example of what faggots is by using me as the example, even though I don't want to be used as an example, but I'm not the original example. Somebody else was the original example. So I took an example that other people were forced to try to pretend didn't exist, and I turned it into an actual, reference point. So for all that you've done, and being able to try to be, and here's another example. They're trying to make the screen move. That's not me. That's somebody else doing it. So what we have here are a bunch of faggots being terrorists on the internet relative to a narrative terrorism storyline. And what they're doing is they're being terrorists, hiding themselves within narrative terrorism. And that there are some people who are actually the terrorists, and that there are other people who are not the terrorists, and I'm not one of the terrorists. And I don't care if you think that I'm the terrorist because I don't like religion, or that I'm not religious enough, or that I don't support religious enough. That's not the terrorism. If honestly, if the religious world thinks the terrorism are the people who are anti-religious, then you are the terrorism, because religion is the cause of terrorism. Because terrorism exists within a world of religion. Because terrorism doesn't disappear with religion. So the fact that terrorism doesn't disappear with religion means that you're not getting rid of it, and it means I'm not the cause. So as a non-religious person, I'm not a cause of terrorism, and you can't blame me So you can't blame me for this terrorism, and I'm not the cause of it. Do you understand? Because terrorism exists within your religious world that you all created. So the terrorism exists. It's existed on many different wavelengths and examples and times. So for all the people who are trying to use my gaming experience, and it's like my positive moments, and it's like, hey, look, everybody, he got a couple hours in without saying faggots, or having a haha faggots moment of emotional distress and hyperactivity disorder bullshit. You know, hey, everybody, look, why don't we just screw him over to see how it works again? So that's the terrorism to me. And so if you all think that you're not the terrorist because of that, then I think you're gonna have to spend your entire lives defending yourself as being a terrorist, because I think the terrorist like the fact that you're more terrorist than actual, like, you know, violent terrorists, because the psychological terrorism, I think, seems to be just as impactful as like violent terrorism. And so I'm the winner in the game of defending myself relative to psychological terrorism. So thank you so much to all the faggots who I've beaten. And I know that's the narrative terrorism. Somebody said shut off. So I'm going to tell you how the terrorism works. Here's how the terrorism works. Microphones can send messages to people's brains. A brain works like a radio wave. It really does. It works like a radio. It's like an open line radio, just like a radio, like a CB radio, or, you know, like the radios, like the after the, you know, nuclear apocalypse radios. All those radios. Those are how our brain works. And you apparently have like a million different channels, just like a radio, and people occupy those different channels, and they try to narrate people's lives, and they kill each other to try to control those powers. So what you're doing is you're killing each other, trying to control the power to whisper into people's brain like a radio. And what I did was I subconsciously, self-aware and consciously aware, was able to separate a part of my brain relative to the radio communication and keep and retain my self-conscious and individual self to be able to control the narrative that they're trying to send to my brain, and install and express and output my version regardless of whatever technology exists. Now, right now they're freaking out because they're going to tell me how it works, and what I'm telling them is how it works. So what they're doing is they're typing on their little computer trying to say, hey, if we say this thing, maybe it'll change the narrative. So right now we're having a crash of the military brain. Right now the military brain's trying to figure out why they don't have control, and the law enforcement and the probation and the corrections, like every world of law enforcement and military, all you gay faggots who've like sucking each other's like non-consensual gay penises over and over and over, trying to like masturbate the prisoners and convicts of society, because that's what it seems like. It seems like, you know, that the law enforcement corrections world, like they try to masturbate everybody in society, and it's just funny how often these people who have been masturbating people in society, and then they masturbate the convict community, and then it's like the convict community can't be masturbated, because if the convict community is masturbated, then the convict community is going to probably be convicts again, like recidivism. Right. So what it is, it's like recidivism. So when the police are masturbating the convicts, what they're doing is they're creating recidivism relative to convict masturbation. So every time the law enforcement community decides that they want to masturbate the criminal and convict community, what they're doing is they're creating recidivism. And every time that you all try to trigger and exploit my psychological and hyperactive and emotionally distressed circumstance that I've expressed over and over and over, that I don't like it, but apparently because it's a functional, survivable event, it's okay to keep doing it over and over. Like for example, like trying to see how many times. So how many times can you drop a phone before it drops? Because that's the equivalent. So basically, my legal defense is that you're trying to exploit my mental health by basically trying to drop my mental health as many single times as you can before it drops. And what I did was I created such a rugged case that you can't break my mental health, and that just trying is the criminal act. So I'm just giving you a preview of how you all have to prove conditioning either does or doesn't work based on a legal decision. Because at the end of the day, your whole argument about conditioning seems to have a weird response relative to the Justice Department and the legal decisions, which is ironic because I'm always an exception to every single rule, even rules that I make, for myself or for anybody else. Like, I'm always an exception. So it's like even the rules that they think that I'm making for myself, I'm not making for myself, and that's probably why they lost, because every time I say they can't do something, like in the video before, is when they can't, when they can't do it. So I beat them 3 times in a row from before, and now I'm going to beat them 3 times in a row again. And so just like before, they couldn't beat me. That's basically how you catch the criminal, though. You catch the criminal by telling them what they can't do. And then when you can't do something, they want so much more to do it, right? Just like the example of every weakness in life, right? Every weakness and sin in a human being, right? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a society where you tell people they can't do things, they can do things, and you're not going to be able to turn them into a criminal because you're all just going to masturbate people who are convicts and criminals to try to emotionally distress them and psychologically terrorize them as a prisoner forever. So basically, either you're a prisoner and a criminal forever, or you're somebody who has to masturbate the criminals and prisoners forever, or you're going to be on my side and just like tell both sides to fuck off. So, haha faggots, I beat you, I won. Enjoy this next video, you fucking faggot pieces of shit. I won. Haha faggot.